Paradox, also known as an antinomy, is a logically self-contradictory statement or a statement that runs contrary to one's expectations. So, we will be seeing the top 10 paradox that will blow your mind only on Enigma Buzz. The liar paradox. The simplest version of the paradox is that suppose we have a sentence A which says this statement A is false. If A is true, then the statement is false is true. Therefore, A must be false. The hypothesis that A is true leads to the conclusion that A is false. A contradiction. If A is false, then the statement is false. Therefore, A must be true. The hypothesis that A is false leads to the conclusion that A is true. Whoa, another contradiction. Either way, A is both true and false, which leads to a paradox. Crocodile Paradox. The Crocodile Paradox, also known as Crocodile Sophism, is a paradox in logic in the same family of paradoxes as the liar paradox. The premise states that there is a father and his child in riverside, and suddenly a crocodile appears and steals the child, and the crocodile promises the father that his child will be returned if and only if he correctly answers his question that what will he do with the child? Will he eat the child or will he return the child back? The transaction is logically smooth if the parent guesses that the child will be returned, but a dilemma arises for the crocodile if the parent guesses that the child will not be returned. In the case that the crocodile decides to keep the child, he violates his terms. The parent's prediction has been validated and the child should be returned. However, in the case that the crocodile decides to give back the child, he still violates his terms even if his decision is based on the previous result. The parent's prediction has been falsified and the child should not be returned. Since the child is not returned, the prediction is true and the child has to be returned. The question of what the crocodile should do is therefore paradoxical and there is no justifiable solution. The Grandfather Paradox. The Grandfather Paradox is a paradox of time travel in which inconsistencies emerge through changing the past. The name comes from the paradox description. A person decides to travel to the past and kills their own grandfather before the conception of their father or mother, which prevents the time traveler's existence. How? Despite its titles, the Grandfather Paradox does not exclusively regard the contradiction of killing one's own grandfather to prevent one's birth. Rather, the paradox regards any action that alters the past, since there is a contradiction whenever the past becomes different from the way it was. Omnipotence Paradox. First of all, who is an omnipotent? The one who has the power to do everything. We consider God as an omnipotent. A common modern version of the omnipotence paradox is expressed in the question, can God create a stone so heavy that he himself cannot lift it? This question generates a dilemma. God can either create a stone it cannot lift, or it cannot create a stone it cannot lift. If the being can create a stone that it cannot lift, then it is not omnipotent because there is a weight threshold beyond its own power to lift. If the being cannot create a stone it cannot lift, then there is something it cannot create and is therefore not omnipotent. In either case, the being is not omnipotent. Smullyan's Paradox. Let's say there were three men at a desert oasis, A, B, and C. Eventually, A and B decide independently to murder C. A decides to poison the water bottle of C and kill him, and later B punches a hole in the same water bottle so that the water is finished and he dies of thirst. Eventually, C dies of dehydration. So the question arises, who killed him? A argues that C never drank the poison. B claims that he only saved C of the poisoned water. They're both right, but still C is dead. Who's guilty? Looks like there's a crime to solve. Barber Paradox. The premise of the paradox is that there is a city where there is only one barber and no men have beard. The barber is the one who shaves all those and those only who do not shave themselves. The question is, does the barber shave himself? Answering this question results in a contradiction. The barber cannot shave himself, as he only shaved those who do not shave themselves. Thus, if he shave himself, he ceases to be the barber. Conversely, if the barber does not shave himself, then he fits into the group of people. Paradox of the court. The paradox of the court is a paradox originating in ancient Greece. It is said that a famous lawyer took on promising a man to teach him the law and he will pay him the money after when he wins his first case. After the man was taught the law, he decided to not enter the profession of law but to enter politics instead. The lawyer decided to file a case against the man for the amount owed. Lawyer argued that if he won the case, he would be paid his money. If the man won the case, lawyer would still be paid according to the original contract because the man would have won his first case. The man, however, claimed that if he won, then by the court's decision, he would not have to pay the lawyer. If on the other hand, lawyer won, then the man would still not have won a case and would therefore not be obliged to pay. The question is then, which of the two men is in the right? This creates a paradox. Unstoppable force paradox. What if there is a hammer which is unstoppable and will break through everything in the world? And what if there is also a shield which has unbreakable power and is hit with the unstoppable hammer? If the shield breaks, then the shield is not unbreakable, and in case it withstands the force of hammer, then the hammer is not unstoppable. This contradicts the first two statements about the hammer and the shield. Bootstrap Paradox. The Bootstrap Paradox is one of the most interesting of all. It says that if there is a person and he writes a book which was published and was a big success, and he decides to go to the past and give the book to the past version of him, and he published the same book and it was a success, and he also decides to go to the past and do the same what the future version of him did, and he went to the past and gave it to the past version of him, and so on. Eventually, the question is that who then wrote the book at the first? If there is no start for the book, then it doesn't exist. And if the book doesn't exist, then which is the book that is published and become a success? It is contradictory and hence is a paradox. Theseus Paradox. Let's say there is a wooden boat which is a little old and has some parts to be replaced, which were replaced by the new ones, and the old parts were kept. And as the time passed, slowly all parts were replaced with the new one, and all the parts which were replaced were kept safely, and one day the owner decides to assemble all the old parts again, and there is another boat. So the question is, which boat is the real one? The answer is arguable. What do you think? Let me know in the comment box. So that were the top 10 paradox for you. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and for more mind-blowing videos like this, subscribe to my channel and don't forget to press the bell icon for a notification whenever I upload the next video.